Today on the show, I have the pleasure of speaking with Paul Wakim. Paul got started in the real estate industry back in 2016 when he started a real estate photography business. But then Paul went on to co-found a company called TwnSqr, which uses a specific algorithm to predict when sellers are going to sell their properties. Through a lot of trial and error, Paul ended up with a version of TwnSqr that is it today. And it's the premier off-market property deposition tool that connects real estate investors with one another. And eventually, they want to become the biggest or the largest institutional buyer in the world. Their goal is to support sellers, investors, and buyers of all sizes through world-class technology. I'm really excited to have him on the show today to share his incredible insight and knowledge. But enough out of me. Let's get him out here. G'day, Paul. Welcome to the show. How you doing today, mate?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Reed. I've been a fan of yours, as we said before the show. I've been a fan of yours for a while after you sent me an email to get me on your email newsletter, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm looking forward to talking to you about all things real estate and TwnSqr.
Well, mate, back at you. You were just having a really interesting conversation in the green room. Clearly we're on the same wavelength in terms of juices flowing. So I think this is going to be a great conversation. But to get started, let's rewind the clock and tell me how you made your first ever dollar as a kid.
Yeah, I started out whenever I was in middle school, before I could drive, pushing a lawnmower and a leaf blower and a weed whacker up and down my street, doing landscaping and cutting grass and spreading mulch for my neighbors. And that thankfully turned into a pretty large business throughout high school as I could drive. And I never really had a job working for anybody else like most of my friends did in high school. And it was landscaping,
nice.
Knocking on people's doors, cutting grass.
I tell you what, the amount of people who've come on this show, particularly American people, it seems like as young boys, it's like, here, get out and do some hard yakka, as they say in Australia, and get on the tools and earn a bit of dough. So awesome stuff. Now walk us through the journey into who you are today. There's probably a bit of I mentioned earlier you had a photography business, but it sounds like you've had entrepreneurial genes in your veins for a little bit of time. Yep. How did it all come about?
Yeah. So whenever I went to college, I got into the world of buying and selling sneakers, of all things.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Gary V, eat your heart out.
Yeah, that's right. The craziest story that I have around selling sneakers is a friend of mine. He and I were both trying to get the Yeezy Red October sneakers, Kanye's sneakers, whenever he was still with Nike. And they were the all red pair. Yep. And he ended up getting them, my friend in college. He ended up getting them. And I was kind of like looking over his shoulder. I got to hold this pair of sneakers that he paid $250 for. And he turned around and sold them immediately. But whenever he was trying to sell them, a guy offered him $10,000 cash for this pair of sneakers. Those sneakers today are worth even more than that.
Wow.
So he showed up to the meet to get $10,000 in cash right outside the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. And the guy said, listen, man, I don't have the $10,000 in cash, but do you see the Cadillac CTS behind me? I will give you the car that I drove here in for that pair of 10.5 size all red sneakers. And my friend was like, dude, no way. I'm a college kid. I don't need a car. I can walk to class. So it was landscaping to crazy stories in the sneaker world to whenever I graduated college, it was right around the time that Casey Neistat was becoming a really big name on YouTube. And I was totally obsessed with his message. And all of his drone shots. So my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she bought me a drone, a DJI Phantom 4 for my graduation present. And it spiraled into what has become a very successful real estate photography company. It's still based back home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that's really what got my start in real estate. So landscaping, sneakers, and then real estate photography.
Well, you mentioned someone who's actually I've been following for probably nearly a decade now, and that is Mr. Neistat. He is he's a legend. If people who don't are listening to this show and like, who the hell's Casey Neistat, just go. I think it's Casey and Neistat Niestat or something like that. Yeah. Incredible content creator who lives in New York City. I've been following for many, many years. Got a great story about like young dad. I'd love to have him on the show if he's ever out there. So I'll have to probably pay a bit of an arm and leg to get him on the show. But it's interesting you follow that type of, even he's a non-real estate guy, but he's got such a lot of good messaging, and I could see how you were attracted to his way of photography because, for a split second there, I tried probably back in 2015 or 16 to try and emulate like weekly videos, not on his level, but like to try and do some educational stuff, and he's got way too freaking hard. And I was like, fuck this. I'm like, putting on a camera, putting on like, making sure you don't have like a freaking pimple or, something. It was like way too much. And that's why I got into podcasting. But it's funny that you also used him as inspiration to start a company. So it was a humongous inspiration. One day I hope to sit down with Casey and shake his hand and say, listen, man, I was at the time, whenever I started the photography company, I was working as a bike mechanic part-time. I was working as an intern at a biology lab. And then I was also trying to start a digital marketing company. And then I started the photography company, and like, for better or worse, the message that Casey put out was like, just keep going, keep trying. And I kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And then I finally realized how to focus that effort on one of those strings that I was able to pull, which was the photography business. So one day we'll both get to sit down with Casey and say, hey, thank you. Whenever you get the invite, probably more quicker than I will, make sure you ping me on the, give me a message. But
I will. I promise you that much.
You mentioned a lot of things there, interning at a lab, and, it sounds like you're a very curious mind, a curious being.
For sure.
How does one come to, talk about a little bit about the sort of throwing the spaghetti against the wall? And we're going to get into the real estate part of it, but this is all around mindset, because so many people, when they do start, and this show is all about real estate, but it's also about being an entrepreneur and finding what that string is. But it takes a lot of, so many analogies, fishing lines in the water, spaghetti against the wall, whatever you want to, but the keep going attitude. Was there a time when you thought, fuck this, and I'm going to just go get a 9 to 5?
Yeah, definitely. So while I was selling sneakers in college, I did really, really well my freshman year of college, and I had a 4.0, and then I transferred from one college to another because I thought, I shouldn't be at this small school. I should go try and get a doctorate at this larger school, that is the University of Pittsburgh, which has an amazing medical school, an amazing biology program. And I thought, okay, I can get a 4.0 at a small school. Let me go to this bigger school. And for a time there, in my end of my freshman year through my junior year of college, I thought, all right, I'm going to become a doctor. I was trying to get a degree in economics as well as a biology degree and go pre-med. And I kind of wrote off the idea of being an entrepreneur. While I was selling sneakers, it was just like a fun thing to do. It was something that my friends and I enjoyed doing together. But I guess it was like the promise of, sometime in my 30s, I'll be able to make $400,000 a year. And as a college kid, that's like unbelievable. I have to do that. Let me go down that guaranteed path. But as I realized what the quote unquote, the system had to offer me, I quickly rebelled and went back to my entrepreneurial roots. Did you finish your degree? Yeah. So I have a degree in economics. So when I met my wife, she said, you don't want a degree in economics and a degree in biology. You need to get out of school as soon as possible. And she saved me, hands down, 100%. She saved me from going to school for 5, 6, 7 years and then going to get my doctorate, and really put me back on the tracks of where I want to be, which is controlling the direction of my life rather than being in the field of a doctor and following the line that everybody else has been on. Right. No, it's so common to this podcast, to my story, to a lot of people's stories out there about
following the path that, the parents are like, go to school, get a good job. And you mentioned the word guaranteed path. And I think that's such a, ingrained sense of who we are. But I would be misspoken to not say that going to university, going through that pain of doing 4 years does teach you an element of discipline.
Yeah.
And as much as people, want to shit all over tertiary education, I think it helps you grow as a human as well. It gives you skill sets that, okay, I now know what I don't want to do, or I discover other people who think like I'd think, like selling sneakers or your wife and stuff like that. So there is benefits for it in someone's life at a certain point when they're ready for it. So awesome stuff. But let's get into the nuts and bolts of what we're on here to talk about, TwnSqr.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? And I mentioned algorithm in the introduction. So do you have a coding background as well that we're not even talking about?
So I definitely am curious. You hit the nail on the head with that. So I'll give the brief overview on how we got to TwnSqr. So graduated from college, got the drone as my graduation gift. Through a bunch of different steps in the process, my wife and I built a very large, successful real estate photography business. We photograph sometimes slightly under, sometimes slightly over 25% of all the listings in Western Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Yeah. So super happy about the progress that we made there. And it was like my first foray into holding myself accountable because my clients were holding me accountable and, having an actual big business, hiring employees, dealing with accountants, dealing with attorneys, blah, blah, blah. But as I was the primary photographer, I got exposure to real estate agents, high-end real estate investors, top of the line flippers, developers, all these different people. And it like re-sparked this interest that I had in investing in real estate and just understanding real estate as a whole. And then I started to realize that as I was talking I have photographed probably close to 6,000 or 7,000 homes. And I would talk to the homeowners each time. So it was this perfect pressure cooker of, I'm really interested in real estate and I'm hearing why homeowners are selling their houses. At the exact same time, I was also understanding what data was available on the MLS and from places like CoreLogic and from places like Atom Data. And I decided that I was going to hire a coach from the UK to teach me how to code in Python so that I could combine all those different things that were putting pressure on me at the time to create an algorithm to predict who was going to sell their house next. And that was right around the middle of 2018. So about 2 years after graduating college. And I built a very, very, very rudimentary system. It's hard to call it an algorithm to predict who was going to sell their house. It led me to buying and selling a bunch of houses, and it really started my real estate investing career. But fast forwarding a little bit more to where I'm at today with TwnSqr. TwnSqr as a technology company, the VC-backed startup that we're pushing really hard down, that was all started in the middle of 2019, whenever I introduced my algorithm to my friend that I met while rock climbing. Mitch. Mitch is our CTO, and Mitch really knows how to code. I don't really know how to code. And right before COVID hit, we built one hell of an algorithm that had 95% accuracy that really pushed us down the path of real estate investing and real estate technology. So yeah, we went through the overview pretty quick and pretty high level, but Mitch and coding really was what started out TwnSqr and started us down the path of how we got to where we are today.
That's incredible journey, and it's only recently, right? It's only you've gone through so many iterations of what you're trying to do, and it's kudos to you for keep being curious, because I think that back to what talk about Casey Neistat saying keep pulling on those strings until you find someone. But as a former engineer myself, not in the tech space, in the physical space, I'm interested. 95% accuracy. What does that even mean? What are you measuring? How do you know? What's the algorithm testing for when you're trying to predict if someone's ready to sell their house, and if they're an investor or if they're just a homeowner, they're just looking to move the family up in the world?
Yeah. So all of the predictions that we did, and I should say that today TwnSqr is doing no predictions whatsoever. We've pivoted many times. We've gone through many different iterations of the business, which I'm sure we'll get into. But back then in middle of 2019 through the pandemic, what we were doing was, you can kind of think of it like Facebook profiles, or think of it like a giant spreadsheet where each row on your spreadsheet is the name of a homeowner in Allegheny County around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then each column, say there's 1,000 columns, there's 500,000 single family homes in Allegheny County, and there's like 400 different attributes that are the columns of each homeowner. We would look at the historical data and say, show me all the columns of people who have sold in the last 5 years. Show me all the rows of all the people that have sold in the last 5 years, and then build a profile for all the people and all of their similarities. So we know most people sell their house whenever they have a divorce. Most people sell their house whenever a family member passes away. Most people sell their house if they have 35% or more equity, those kind of attributes. And then we would combine all of those and say to our program, go out and find people that look very similar to those people that we know have sold, that their Facebook profile looks very similar, and then tell us who they are today that haven't sold yet, but have a very similar data profile, this Facebook profile that I keep referring to. And 95% of the people that it spat out whenever we would ask for a list of 500 to 1,000 people actually ended up selling their house in 6 to 12 months. So that's where the 95% accuracy comes from.
Got it. And what you mentioned, iterations of the business. How are you iterating today to create that platform? Because it seems like a lot of prop tech, a lot of technology companies are all using the Facebook, blueprint, which is create a profile, create a marketplace. That marketplace, you can connect with others.
Yep.
You can go do business, right? That's the underlying theme, whether it's business, whether it being social interactions, whether it being, poking someone. I don't know if poking even still exists, but these are the things that most, you think of LinkedIn, you think of Instagram, you think of any tech platform creates a profile.
Yeah.
So how are you building that profile and that platform that people want to be on? Because as a buyer or a seller or an investor, you have to provide me value, right? Like back in the day, Facebook was providing value as a social media in terms of, making sure that people are connecting online. So what's your draw for the average investor to say, well, why the hell would I want to go on, TwnSqr, or if I, can go find another platform? And is there other platforms out there?
Yeah. So to answer that last question real quick, we do have competition. There are platforms that are trying to do something similar to us. And then real quick, to just describe the portion of the real estate industry that we're operating in, it's really the off-market, small multifamily, single family flipper type of the industry or sector of the industry. And I really think, Reed, that sector that we're in, maybe I'm biased, I probably am, but I really think that world of selling single family homes and selling properties that are very much candidates for the MLS, but selling them off market is really like the last frontier where technology hasn't touched yet. And our goal is to provide world-class technology on the bleeding edge of this frontier. Lots of buzzwords. But provide world-class technology to the investors that control that last uncontrolled part of the real estate industry. So what exactly does that mean? TwnSqr is a marketplace at its core for off-market properties, typically single-family homes and small multifamilies. We're branching more and more into the commercial property space, the large multifamily space, but it's a marketplace for those smaller investment-grade properties. But it's not just a marketplace where people can just dump their property and say, okay, somebody hopefully will come buy it, like Zillow or like some other companies. What we're doing in addition to that is we're offering tools to the investors to enhance their listings, to enhance their posts, as we call them, after they've been posted on TwnSqr. So a couple of those tools or a couple of places that we provide value through those tools is you can upload your properties, but you can also upload lists of your contacts from your network, and you can send directly from our system, send a really nicely formatted email to all of your contacts to say, hey, all of my real estate investing friends, my property is for sale. Let me know if you're interested. We can work together on this. Let me know if you want to buy it, or let me know if you know somebody that wants to buy it. So it's like a marketing engine built into the marketplace. But then the gem in our crown, the thing that really sets us apart and that we're really proud of, is what we call post sharing. So we had this epiphany where if you have your property on TwnSqr on the marketplace, that's one really important entity. And then you have your list of all the people in your network. You have that on TwnSqr. If everybody has both of those super important entities, we should allow them to share those entities with one another back and forth. So post sharing on TwnSqr is just that. I can bring a property to the platform. I can market it, put it on the marketplace. I can send it out to my network. But then, Reed, I can come and I can find you and I can see, okay, Reed has uploaded 500 contacts. I can't see who those contacts are, but then I can bring my deal to you. I can share it with you and say, hey, Reed, here's 123 Main Street, Austin, Texas. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, whatever. Here's all the information about it. Can you share it with your network? And if somebody from your network is interested in the property, I will split my profits with you in some way, shape, or form, or I'll pay you a finder's fee or whatever it is. So we're allowing investors to do what they typically do off market, offline, where they go to one another and say, hey, can we do a deal together? We're bringing that online, and we do it primarily through joint venture partnerships, where I would partner with you and say, hey, let's sell this property to our contacts together, or let's go into business together as joint owners of this property and sell it. So that post sharing and the ability to send out your posts via our platform are the things that we're really trying to help differentiate us from the competition and really try to innovate on the bleeding edge of that frontier that I think, again, is the last frontier in real estate.
It's interesting because something comes to mind when you say that. It seems that the value of TwnSqr would nearly need to be super local, right? Like, because if I am a guy, maybe as I say this out loud, if I'm living in LA, and I know the LA market really well, and I fix and flip in LA, but I want to get in Austin. You probably aren't going to be like, I've got 500 contacts in LA. Do you want something in Austin, Texas, Mr. Seller? And so they're nearly. Have you ever come across that issue, that hurdle of like, when I think of the local real estate investment club, and there's always the wholesaler there, and there's always a local flipper, and there's always the hard money lender, and they're sort of within their own little ecosystem within the city. And maybe I'm talking out the side of my mouth. There might be other people who live in New York or Florida who are wanting to do deals here or vice versa, and they want that platform to access. I don't know if you've come across that when real estate is so hyper local.
Yeah, so it definitely is hyper local, but I've never had success in business unless I've partnered with somebody who has a connection with somebody else. So even if I was in LA with you, Reed, I would probably try to figure out who you are at one of these local RIAs so that we could do business together, because you probably have a bigger network of more professional buyers than I do. So we definitely see pockets of investors working together within the LA market, within the Chicago market, within the, all the Florida markets. But we also see people that are exchanging properties, buying and selling all over the country. We have a guy that's in Texas right now that is selling properties, buying and selling small multifamilies in every single major and secondary market across Texas and almost all of the major markets across Florida. So his ability that we provide him to connect with the people that have boots on the ground there in those cities, and his ability to connect with them via a deal, not just a phone call of, hey, I'm a nice guy, can we work together when I get a deal, but connecting on the deal by deal basis has really helped their businesses. So yeah, I think that we really help satisfy two different things. That is connecting in that hyper local market, but then also allowing the people that do business outside of just where they have their feet on the ground, helping them connect with the experts that do have their feet on the ground in those other places.
Right. How many transactions have you facilitated today?
Yeah, so we're forming connections between the investors. That's what we're tracking, is how many connections where I have a property to sell and I bring it to you, Reed, and then you take it to your network. About 120 of those happen every month, and it's growing every single day, thankfully. And we just started in July. So we've gone through a bunch of different iterations of the business, like we've said here on the show. And the last iteration that we're really pushing hard on, we launched in July. So we've grown from 0 connections to 120 per month in 5 months. That's so great. We're happy about that.
It's good. That's very good growth. And are you trying to be a fee-based platform where I've got to pay to come on, or is it more free to everyone? Give it away for free and then start to monetize the data and all the contacts that you get?
So right now it's just a pure SaaS product, monthly membership, sign up and have access to all the tools that I just mentioned, have access to the marketplace, and the tools to make those connections. There's some really big opportunities that we were kind of riffing on before the show here. One of the big initiatives that we're pushing for, that I'm pushing the company towards, is we want to be a place for only professional deals and only professional real estate investors. That is both the seller who's selling the deal and the buyer who's buying the deal. And I think that once we achieve that, we're not there yet, but once we achieve that, there will be a great opportunity for us to say, we're providing so much value that we do deserve to make some kind of transactional revenue, because it is only professionals communicating on a deal by deal basis. And then I think there's an even bigger opportunity for us to offer lending services and some kind of financial services on each property. But to answer your question point blank, right now it's just a monthly membership to have access to the platform, and we're working our butts off making it better.
What's that cost someone these days?
Yeah, $149 a month.
$149 a month. I, as a non-prop tech guy, like they always say give it away for free and see who comes. And I wonder if there's a version or a watered down version to sort of tease the customer into, hey, come on, it's free for the first 3 months and see the value we provide. And because you mentioned CRM, there's clearly like some sort of tool that you could CRM it together, being sort of one and the same. But it does seem like a great opportunity for wholesalers and local flippers to get into that market. And I think as you start infiltrating and getting the right, and this is my 2 cents, going to those converting the local RIAs into this online networking event. Like I just go back to my first ever RIA event in New York City, and I'm there, talking with hard money lenders and the buyers and the sellers of these single families, and you're just sort of trying to create that online. And that's, I think it's very powerful. I think that it can be very powerful, but it's also getting your product into those rooms now as people are networking, which will help that grow and the understanding of where the go-to online forum for that. So absolutely love it, my friend.
Certainly. What do you? Yeah, we do have. Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize. We do have a free version, and the free version does allow you to get your properties on the platform. It's not like, I never want to charge anybody because the data is so valuable. I never want to charge anybody for saying, I have a property that is only on TwnSqr, that is not on the MLS, that is for sale. Like, that's always going to be free because that's so valuable to everybody. Anybody who touches real estate, that's a valuable transaction. So that will always be free. And we do have a 30-day free trial that we are known to extend in exchange for getting feedback from our users. So we have tested exactly what you were recommending, is like, okay, how do we get the most people on here as we possibly can? And giving it away for free for a shortish period of time has really worked out well for us. We've had over 800 people sign up since July.
That's awesome. Well, I know one of the big things when you're doing an online tech company, and really on most companies, as you start producing a SaaS product, it's all about marketing dollars, right? You go and spend a ton of money on just getting the name out there, TwnSqr. So what are you doing now, to sort of get the name out there as much as you can? Because I'm assuming your marketing budget is the largest on the P&L.
Yeah, actually, we're very fortunate that the fix and flippers, the wholesalers, the guys that control that frontier of real estate, the small multifamilies and the single family homes, they all really congregate online. So we've had a lot of success working with social media influencers and paying them as affiliate partners to promote TwnSqr across their social media. We have a couple affiliates that the second that they make a post, we'll see 20, 30, 40, or 50, maybe 100 people sign up the second that they make a post about us. Wow. So there definitely is a calculation, like the customer acquisition cost definitely takes into account what we pay out to our affiliates. But I'm happy to say I'm not plowing a bunch of money into Facebook or Google ads or YouTube ads or Instagram or any of that stuff right now. The other big expense that we definitely take into account with customer acquisition cost is we've had a lot of success joining masterminds. There are some really prominent masterminds that house the guys at the tip of the spear in the fix and flip wholesaling, smaller single family home world. And by joining those masterminds, we spend a couple $1,000s a month for each mastermind, but we have instant credibility to say we're a part of XYZ masterminds. So yeah, great question. I'm happy to say that we're not spending a bunch of money on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google pay-per-click, all of that stuff.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet. It's coming. I'm sure it's coming.
No, I think it's smart. I think it's what you angle the influencers and getting into those masterminds to, as you said, the tip of the spear. Perfect. As a pseudo VC pitch, this interview is, it's a very good answer, because I think that's probably where my next question is, because those masterminds these days are so powerful. And you mentioned Collective Genius. We had a gentleman who gave us an endorsement for the book 10,000 Miles to the American Dream, who one of the co-authors, who's Australian. Bryce, he's been on the show. He knows him very well. So I know you're part of Collective Genius, and it's an incredible mastermind. So, mate, look, last question before we get into the lightning round is, what you mentioned you want to go global, or what's the audacious goal here?
Yeah. So I think there's a humongous opportunity for us to take what the MLS should have been if Zillow would have really stepped in and really made a nationwide MLS and didn't have the National Association of Realtors looking over their shoulder and controlling all the data. I think there's a humongous opportunity for us to not just offer the marketplace, but continue offering these tools for the real estate investors that use the marketplace. And I'll say the quiet part out loud, capture all of that data. The data is going to be so, so valuable. So my big goal for the business is to offer a marketplace with those tools built on top so that we can capture the 1.475 million wholesale off-market transactions that happen every single year. And that way somebody can hold up their phone and say, what are all of the real estate agent transactions on Zillow? Okay, there's 6.8 million of those happening every single year. Hold up my wife's cell phone. What are all the off-market transactions happening? I'm going to go to TwnSqr. That's my big goal for the business. And we're raising VC capital, as we discussed. So we're looking for an exit or an acquisition or something of the sort eventually one day, but that's not on my radar right now. I have my head down and my thumb up saying we're going to get it.
That's awesome, man. Well, look, I'm very intrigued, and as I mentioned in the green room, you can count me as a potential investor in the future.
Awesome.
So keep me in mind as you keep growing, and we'll have to get you back on the show here in a year's time to see where you're at.
I love that. Thank you.
With that being said, we like to end the show with the top 5 investing tips. You ready to get into it?
Let's do it,
mate. Question number 1 is, what's the daily habit you practice to keep on track towards your goals?
Being outside. 100%. It's being outside. I'm kind of a broken record with this, and my employees and all of my friends. I read this book a couple of years ago called The Nature Fix that talks about the science of being outside and with the impact that it can have on you. I don't really do anything else except for eat, sleep, work out, do TwnSqr, and spend time outside with my wife. That's it. Like, that is my life every single day, no matter if it's Saturday or if it's Wednesday. I'm doing the exact same thing, and it's either eating, sleeping, working on TwnSqr, or spending time outside. And without that last little piece, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I'm at today, or I'm very confident I wouldn't be able to get to where I'm going without spending time in nature. Love it.
Love it. Question number 2 is, who's been the most influential person in your career to date?
Oh man, that's a hard one. It's kind of cliche to say, but I read back whenever it first came out, the biography of Elon Musk and his like reserved, introverted way of running PayPal and Tesla and SpaceX whenever he first started out, and then where he's at today, where everybody knows who he is. He's like the talk of the entire world. I really like that that idea of nobody knows who I am, I guess, until I have really made it. And that's something that really drives me every single day is like, I guess if I can say it as clearly as possible, I don't want anybody to know anything about me until I feel like I have actually provided value in the world. And I feel like that's what Elon embodies, is that if you read his biography, the guy that was interviewing had the hardest time in the world just getting him to sit down for an interview because he was too busy working. He was too busy making SpaceX and Tesla a success. Having that story in the back of my mind at all times, I know it's cliche, but I definitely like to follow Elon's footsteps.
Yeah, like flying under the radar until you, as you said, you've got something of value to show, and then you can go bang your own drum. I love that. That's such a valuable lesson, I guess, a takeaway from Mr. Musk.
As we sit on the podcast.
Yeah, as we sit on the podcast, right? Talking about the business that's only just started. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, that's right. Look at me go.
Yeah, exactly. What they say as I do, not as I say. Do as I say, not as I do. But question number 3 is, what is the most influential tool in your business? And when I mention tool, it could be a physical tool like a journal or a phone, or it could be a piece of software that you just can't run the business without. And it can't be TwnSqr.
No, all good. I have a couple, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So everybody hopefully knows about Loom. Loom is a screen recording software that our business, I didn't mention this, Reed, our business has been remote since day one. My co-founder does not live near me. Our sales guys live all over the country. I have 5 employees in Pakistan. Everything about TwnSqr is remote. Our developers are all over the world, some in the US, some overseas. And the efficiency that Loom provides to show somebody exactly what's happening on your screen, see your face, see the inflection in hear the inflection in your voice. And it just helped with communication more so than I was ever expecting it to. So Loom is number 1. Number 2 is Miro, Mirro. Miro is like, imagine you and I could sit in a room with unlimited sticky notes and unlimited compute power and a humongous whiteboard that's never ending. There's pretty much nothing we couldn't figure out our own answer to. That's essentially what Miro is. So my team and I use Miro for everything, and we use Loom for absolutely everything. So yeah, loom.com and Miro, Mirro, are my go-to tools for remote communication.
So never heard of Miro, and I'll come back to that in a second. But Loom, for anyone who's listening, if you don't use Loom in your business, you're silly. It's free. I think it's free. I can't even remember. I probably pay a small amount of money a month, but I can quickly go on, share my screen, communicate exactly what I need to get done. And particularly if you use virtual assistants, one of the things I learned early on was that my virtual assistants were failing. It wasn't because of their ability to execute. It was because of my inability to communicate. And Loom helps me. Loom helps me communicate that more effectively. And now I have less than 2% of questions come back when I send out a Loom video. But Miro is another one I'll have to definitely get my hands wrapped around. Question number 4 is, in one sentence, what's been the biggest failure in your career, and what did you learn from that failure?
Yeah, that's an easy one. In one sentence might be a little bit difficult for me, but I'll try. The biggest failure has been not knowing when to pivot or to change courses in the business, period. I'll add a little bit of color there. So we started out with that prediction algorithm. We very quickly pivoted away from that because COVID hit and the data got all messed up. After that, we went into this space of retail sellers, helping retail sellers connect with retail agents. And we had a business model that I loved so much. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, maybe for another conversation. But I was so in love with that. And my business partner, our CTO, was also so in love with it that we just let it go on too long, and we almost ran out of money, and we had to go raise money, and we just weren't providing enough value to the market. So not knowing when to pivot or not pivoting soon enough has been the biggest failure or the biggest learning that I've had throughout my business career.
It's interesting you bring up pivoting, because we'll sort of add something else to that, and we'll wrap up the show here. But you also got to be an inch wide and a mile deep, depending on your expertise. Right now, for a technology company like yourself, I think pivoting is really important, because I've got personal friends who've built technology companies, and there's been 10, 15, 20 iterations of the company as you refine it. And that's back to the strings or the fishing lines in the water, or the spaghetti against the wall. But if you're in the physical world, I'm a multifamily. Now I have other businesses that are growing around it, but the core nucleus of what we do is provide housing. So there is depending on what business you're in, is what I'm trying to say, is depending on the pivoting. But as a whole, as an entrepreneur, you have to be like a surfer and riding a wave, and being able to turn when it's a little choppy, ride the clear water when it's clear water, and just be able to be malleable enough to react when market conditions change, or when something's not working right? And you've got to be able to move on. So I think it's really awesome having the self-awareness to know to pivot as well. I think that's important, right? Because you probably built self-awareness around that, looking back on that and saying, gosh, we should have moved on a little quicker than that.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what happened. And we've pivoted a couple times since then, and I am 100% confident we wouldn't have been able to raise the money that we've raised or build the customer base that we've built in the last 5 months without the ability for Mitch and I and our sales team and I to sit down and say, this feels like 2020 and 2021. We can't do this. We can't do this. Run away, pivot. So yeah, it's been one of the biggest failures, but also the biggest learning without a question, is knowing when to pivot and going through that process. And I'm better for it. No question about it.
Love it. Mate, last question. Where can people reach you to continue the conversation that would be in your sphere? Where do they go?
Yeah. So anybody, anytime, anywhere can email me at paul@TwnSqr.com. You can find our platform and everything that is related to TwnSqr at TwnSqr.com. And then, like I said, I kind of try to stay in the shadows, at least when it comes to social media. I don't really have social media of my own. Maybe one day, whenever I reach Elon's status, I'll get on Twitter. But I don't have social media of my own, but you can find TwnSqr across social media. If you do have the need to connect with me on social media, I do have a LinkedIn account, but TwnSqr is the place to find me and my team and check out our product and learn about what we're doing.
Awesome stuff, mate. Well, look, I want to thank you so much for jumping on the show. Just want to reflect a few of the things that I took away today, because we've got 2 pages of notes here if anyone is following along on the YouTube video. Awesome. But I just love, your ability to be curious. And it's so, if you've been listening to this show, all the listeners out there, the underlying theme of most of the entrepreneurs I interview is curiosity. Being curious. They say curiosity kills the cat, but that's just someone who doesn't want to, doesn't know how to be curious. But I think it's also the adage around what Casey Neistat was saying before about continuing to throw darts or throw spaghetti or put lines in the water to try something, and you're continually pivoting. You started out with a sneaker business. You thought you needed to go to school to do, XYZ that your mum and dad said, go get a job, but it was your wife that pulled you back on the track, and you've done, so many other things, a photography business, and now into this. And I'm sure there's going to be pivots in the future. So I think it's just a good lesson, not only around understanding and discovering who you are as an entrepreneur, because you are young and we're all young and we're all trying to figure it out, but the resilience, I think, is the most important thing, to continue to keep going, because there probably has been no amount of times, which you haven't talked about on the show, but I know it's there, that there's been dark days where you thought, I'm going to give it all up and go and just get a W-2. And, clearly you're a smart bloke and go into a lab and, become, a mad scientist of world economics or something like that. I don't know. But
100%. 100%. The dark days have taught me a lot.
Yep. Did I leave anything out in that little summary?
No, I think that's everything. Curiosity is a great way of describing everything. I had never really looked at it from that perspective, Reed. I appreciate that insight into myself. Honestly, that's one of the best podcasts I've done for that reason.
Well, I also want to say is that I'm really interested, just to end the final note here, is to see how TwnSqr grows. I think it's the platform itself is a need out there in the universe of connecting off-market buyers and sellers, particularly in the high caliber like you're trying to do, the high caliber type of like the LinkedIn of buying and selling, right?
Exactly.
Not everyone's on LinkedIn, but people who are in the professional corporate world are on LinkedIn. So I think having that version for fix and flippers, for investors who are serious to get deals done, I'll be very interested to see and watch from the sidelines and see how you guys grow. But with that being said, thank you so much for jumping on the show. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up very, very soon.
Thanks so much, Reed. It was a pleasure being here, man. And I'll keep reading your newsletter, and I'll be back soon, hopefully.
Awesome, my friend. Well, look, there you have it. A cracking episode jam-packed with some incredible advice from Paul. Remember, if you do want to check out what he does, he's not on social media, which is very interesting because he does have a prop tech company, which you would think that everyone would be on social media. But head over to, or you can email him at Paul, Paul, at TwnSqr.com. That's TWNSQR.com. Or you can go to TwnSqr.com online, which again is TWNSQR.com. I want to thank you all again for taking some time out of your day to tune in to continue to grow your financial IQ and to learn a little bit more about how being curious is the right way of, developing your entrepreneurial muscle, so to speak. And if you do like this show, the easiest way to give back is to give it a 5-star review on iTunes. All the links from today's show will be up on my website at reedgoosens.com. We're going to do this all again next week. So remember, be bold, be brave, and go give life a crack.